It's a little bit concerning that, in open practice in mid-October, October 14th, I think it was, that Saturday, Javon didn't play, or Javon didn't practice, rather, excuse me. And then he didn't practice again for multiple days that following week. So I think that is a little bit concerning. But, at this point, you got to take Penny for his word, right?
Yeah. And I think the concerning part is that, like, Javon Quinly is a big name. He has been a very good player for a very good program. He wasn't the same player after he got that surgery last season. He was a diminished version of himself, and now as we get ready for him to play his first season at the University of Memphis, he's at least bothered to some degree with a knee issue. If the staff is describing it as minor, I will assume that it's minor,
right.
But I would love it if it weren't there.
No, absolutely. I think just the fact that it's agitated again
right.
without even Memphis playing a single, meaningful real game, right? Like,
right.
That's concerning. He was a diminished version of himself at the beginning of that year, but I think as the year ramped up,
he definitely got better.
Like, he was arguably their best player, right? Like in the SEC tournament when he scored 22 points, or in the NCAA tournament second round when he scored 22 to get them to the Sweet 16. So I think that's the Javon Quinly that Memphis, needs,
right.
wants, whatever. And you're right. It is a little bit concerning to see that he's having some issues there without even the season having started.
What did you make of Penny making it very clear, very publicly, that getting off to a slow start is not really an option this season? Whatever version of the AAC they've been playing in, which wasn't the ACC or the Big Ten or the Big 12, it's now greatly diminished with the absence of Houston and Cincinnati and Central Florida. Penny made it clear in his own words, we have to build our NCAA tournament resume largely in November, December, because once we get into conference outside of Florida Atlantic and perhaps another team that might emerge, there ain't a whole lot there that's going to help us boost our resume. What did you make of Penny just speaking so plainly and clearly about that?
Yeah, I think he was just being Penny, right? Penny never bites his tongue or holds back. And I think he said it, and then he heard himself say it, and he tried to walk it back. If you look at the full quote, he said what he said about, this is our season, right? The non-conference is our season. I think the players get that. Then he goes, but, we're not overlooking the AAC. We certainly respect the conference. And that's what he's supposed to say. But I think the first part of that is the truth. Last year, I think Ken Pom ranked the AAC as, the 7th best conference in college sports and college basketball, after the Power 6 and the Mountain West. This year, they might be, that same ranking, but it's even worse. There's more of a disparity, I think, between the talent level and the new watered-down AAC versus even the Mountain West or other conferences. So I think Penny was spot on.
Well, and I do too. And I will never be bothered by somebody telling the truth.
Right.
And that's all he was doing, is telling the truth. He wasn't diminishing the conference schedule or diminishing the conference in general. He was just telling the truth. The truth is, if the AAC was the 7th best conference in the country last season, according to Ken Pom, right now heading into this season, it's projected as 9th behind the Big 12, SEC, Big 10, Big East, Pac-12, ACC, Mountain West, and the West Coast Conference.
Jeez.
Mark Few would gladly tell you that they have to build their at-large resume in November, December before they go in the West Coast Conference, and everybody would shake their head in agreement. I don't know why anybody would have an issue with Penny Hardaway saying the same thing, particularly when, according to Ken Pom, they are playing in a worse league. Florida Atlantic is 37th at Ken Pom in the preseason. There's not another AAC team in the top 80.
Right.
So if you are looking for quality victories, you're probably not going to be able to get them in the AAC.
January. No, you're not.
You've got to get them in the non-league, and that's why it's very important for Memphis to get off to a nice start. DeAndre Williams is somebody I can't play golf without somebody asking me about him. Everywhere I go, people want to ask me. It's the same stuff. It's a Ja Morant question and then a DeAndre Williams question. What's the latest on DeAndre Williams?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because I think 2-3 weeks ago, if you'd asked me the same thing, or asked a lot of people the same thing, they would have said the optimism is very, very low, right? Like they're kind of penciling him out of the picture, sharpening him out of the picture, whatever you want to say. In recent weeks, it seems like that optimism has kind of grown, right? In terms of people who have knowledge of that situation, people within that program. They're kind of still waiting. And Penny said it best the other day. He said, I'm still praying on it. And the NCAA doesn't have a timeline, and they never will. And he's absolutely right on that.
Right. How big of a difference do you think it is to have DeAndre Williams eligible and on this roster? I think we both agree Memphis is going to be good with or without him.
Right.
How much better do they get? How much higher is the ceiling with him in that starting lineup?
Yeah, I think the floor, like you suggested, is pretty good without DeAndre, with or without DeAndre. But if you add DeAndre Williams, I think that's a top 15 team in the country, right, just talent-wise, right? Now, can they put it all together? Can they make a run? That's a different story. But, man, DeAndre makes anything possible. I think then you can really think about, potential Final Four if stuff cracks the right way. I know people have said, Andy Katz and others, John Rothstein, others have said, the Tigers are a dark horse Final Four team, but you add DeAndre, that kind of cements that idea, at least in my mind.
There's no question. There's some computer rankings that would launch Memphis either into the top 10 or near the top 10 with the addition of DeAndre Williams. And so, fingers crossed, we'll hope that this works out. But at this moment, we still are waiting for a ruling. One of the things that had been an issue with some of Penny's teams in the past is chemistry issues.
Right.
He has just, talked about this fairly candidly. I know it's early and, things tend to go okay in the preseason, and then the games start and we'll see where it goes. Do you have any sense for, because it's a lot of new guys that probably didn't know each other 6 months ago.
13 new guys to be exact.
Yeah. Right? Do you have a sense for how that's going? What's the vibe coming out of the practice facility?
Yeah, it sounds, like you said, it sounds all good right now, in terms of speaking to players' family members or speaking to people inside that staff, inside that program. Like, it seems like everybody's happy, everybody's gelling. And Penny even said the DR trip was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he didn't have all of his team, he had most of it at that point. Just having the guys there, for that week, playing those 3 games was instrumental, he said, after the Lane College exhibition. And I think you kind of see it, right, by talking to the guys. Malcolm, and I know guys always say, right, the best ever, the best locker room chemistry, the best this, the best in my 4 years. But, when enough people say it, you kind of got to take it for face value.
Yeah, like it would. And I do think the way it's been termed is important, because everybody would say, oh, it's all good. It's great. But when you start saying, like, it's not only is it good, it's better than it's ever been since I've been here, that means something to me, because you were actually comparing it to other things and saying, this isn't good, it is the best I've ever been a part of. I think that's meaningful.
For sure. But, a lot of that was said last year, too, I feel like. And that's kind of like one of those player speak type things. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, to a certain extent, when multiple guys who have been there, whether it be Malcolm Dandridge or Jaden Hardaway, I think that's it, right, are saying that, and Penny's saying that, there's something to that, absolutely.
So if we are assuming Javon Quinly, even whether he's available tomorrow for the second exhibition or not, if we're assuming he is going to be ready to go on Monday against Jackson State, what does that starting lineup look like to you? Is it obvious what it's going to be if Quinterly's healthy?
Yeah, I think it's obvious. Yeah. Penny said after the exhibition the other night that we could see a completely different starting 5 on Thursday, and I think that'd be smart, right, for him to play around with lineups and kind of see what works well in case Javon isn't good to go. But if Javon is good to go, like people would hope, I think it'd be him, Caleb Mills, David Jones, Jaquan Walton, and Jordan Brown, kind of the starting 5 that we've all expected for a few weeks now.
Last thing before I let you go, the Mikey Williams situation continues to sit out. You weren't getting out of here without a Mikey Williams question. The Mikey Williams situation continues to sit out there. He is not practicing. He's obviously not going to play, but he is still technically a member of the program and a student at the university. Do you think that changes his status as a student or member of the program, changes at any point before his case is resolved? In other words, what I'm asking you is, there have been some people, myself included, who believe respectfully that it's time for Memphis to just cut ties and move on. You with me? Do you think Penny Hardaway will ever get with us?
I don't think so, man. Like, if he's not with us now, right? Like, after what happened on Tuesday where they added the 3 felony charges, the guy doesn't show up to his arraignment, shows up virtually, his order to show up again Friday. Then you learn more details about, like, the nature of the threats, and you learn more details about kind of what occurred that night. And if he's still not willing to, cut ties with Mikey, I think he's not going to be until he absolutely has to. And we're not going to see what happens with that until December 14th when the trial starts. So, no, to answer your question, I don't think his status changes at all until at least December, if not January, February.
I can't thank you enough.